Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Welcome to lesson number 10. This video will teach us about running property. Running property scenarios happen when a person dies and the property has not been distributed. Subsequently, there are more people in the family who die later on. And now, after a few deaths have happened, people are now trying to distribute the property and have to go back to all the way to the first death. Let's learn this from an example and we will solve this together. So imagine this case where Imran and Khadija are married and have four children, Fatima, Alia, Maryam, and Bilal. They live in a house together, and in 1992, Imran died. Imran owned the house and some other property, but house is the main chunk of his inheritance. The property was not distributed, and Khadija subsequently married Abdullah and had two more children, Iram and Amina. Again, the property has not been distributed yet, and many years have passed. Bilal got married to Sana and had a son Zaid, and Fatima got married to Ali and had two children, Zainab and Aisha. Few years later, in 2004, Bilal died. Property has not been distributed yet, and then Khadija died in 2010. Now the family realizes after many years that they need to distribute this property because people are asking for their shares, and they have also realized that this is an important step that they have missed in their religion. They look at the value of the property as of today at the time of distribution, which is what they need to do. So Imran's property, which was the house and some other stuff, had a worth of $300,000. Bilal's property, in addition to what he would have inherited from Imran, he has $100,000 and Khadija had $50,000. So if you look at the total, it would be $450,000 of property, but distributed in different stages and to different people. So let's start this case. What we need to do over here is we need to go back to the first death. Start over there and see who was alive at that time. Then the next death, and then the next death. Let's do it. We go to our first death, which is Imran in 1992. His distributable wealth was $300,000. And we look at 1992 and see who was alive at that time, who was part of the family. At that time, Khadija and the children were alive. So Imran had one wife, one son, and three daughters. We look at table 1, wife's share is 1/8. We don't find any other shares in table 1 because son is alive. We go to table 2 and we find son as the first person in the table 2. So the rest of the 7 shares will go to son and will be distributed among daughters as well. There is one son and 3 daughters. So by doing the male 2:1, 1 multiplied by 2 plus 3, this will be 5. So a total of 5 shares. We use 5 as a multiplier and multiply the whole column with 5, and we get 5, 35, and 40. For the share of each person, wife will get 5. This 35 will be divided into 5 parts, and value of each part will be 7. So son will get 2 parts, which is 14, and each daughter will get 7. We then calculate the actual share, and we get these answers. So this is how we have distributed Imran's wealth. Now, in running property, this is something unique that we have to do. Since we will have multiple steps involved, the relationship between the relatives and the dying person will keep on changing based on how they are related. For example, right now, Khadija is the wife of Imran. But when later on Bilal will die, she will be the mother of Bilal. So instead of calling it just wife or mother, we need to have a separate table with running shares and list down the names of the people and give their shares based on how many steps we have to calculate. After first death, this is how the property is being distributed. The rest of the columns will be for the next death and the subsequent next death, and we will keep on adding the totals and see who gets how much in the end. So with this, we go to the second death. The second death was of Bilal in 2004. So important to note now that distributable wealth will be the sum of what he had left behind plus what he should have inherited from Imran. Since he inherited $105,000, This will be added to his own property, and the total now is $205,000. We look at our situation at the time of death of Bilal and see who are the relatives alive at the time of his death. So when Bilal died, he had a wife, which was Sana, he had a son, who was Zayd, a mom, who was Khadija, and then he had three real sisters, Fatima, Aliya, Maryam, and then he had two maternal sisters, Iram and Amina, because they have a common mom. So let's put those relatives down in the table, which is one wife, mother, son, three real sisters, and two maternal. If you remember, for maternal, it does not matter if it's a sister or a brother, but because they get 1:1. So we just put down two maternal. Let's calculate this from our tables. Wife gets 1/8, mother gets 1/6 because there is the presence of children, which is the son here. LCM of 8 and 6 is 24, and we put that in, so 1/8 becomes 3/24, and 1/6 becomes 4/24. We have 17 more shares to give. We go to table 2, and we find son over there, so son gets all the rest of the 17, and their sisters and maternal sisters do not get anything. The share of each category and each person are simple in this case because we are not using any divisions or multiplier. And then we calculate the actual share, which is 3/24 into $205,000, and so on and so forth. And we have distributed the shares of Bilal. Let's go back to our running table and start adding those things. First step is we look at the table again and see that we don't miss out anyone. Bilal died, so we will cancel his name out of the table. Khadija, who was the mom of Bilal, got an additional share of $34,000, 166.66. Sana is the wife of Bilal, got a share as well, and Zayd got the bigger amount of the share. So now we can do some totals over here and see that Khadija has a total of $71,000, 666.66, and so on and so forth. Then we have the third death of the family. Now Khadija dies in 2010. Her distributable wealth now will be the $50,000 that she left behind plus the $71,666.66 that she has inherited from Imran and then Bilal. So her distributable wealth will be now $121,666.66. We look at the situation when Khadija died and see who are her relatives who are alive. So Khadija has a husband who is alive, Abdullah. She has 1, 2, 3, and then 4 and 5 daughters who are alive. She has her daughter's children, which is Aisha and Zainab. But of course, we know that daughters' children are not counted in the definition of awlad. And she has Bilal's son alive. So she has son's son alive, but her son has already died. So let's put these things down. Husband, 5 daughters, and 1 son. We can get rid of some extra rows in our table and go to table 1 to find the shares. Husband gets 1/4 in the presence of children, which is the daughters in this case, and since the daughters are more than 2, they will get 2/3. The LCM of 4 and 3 is 12. 1/4 will become 3/12, and 2/3 will become 8/12. Now we go to table 2 to see who gets the 1 extra share which is left behind, and in this case we find son, and we give that 1 share to son. The share of each category needs to be calculated. This 8 has to be divided into 5 parts, so we can use 5 as a multiplier for this column, and when we do that we get answers of 15, 45 out of a total of 60 shares. The share of each person, we will divide this 40 into 5 parts. Value of each part will be 8, so each daughter will get 8. And then in the last column we calculate the actual values of the share, which it will be 15/60 into the distributable property, and so on and so forth. And now we have distributed the wealth of Khadija as well. Finally, we go back to our running table one last time and start updating the situation. Now we see that Khadija has died, so we will cancel her name out of the table. We see that Abdullah, her husband, is a new addition and he gets a certain value. we see that Fatima, Alia, Maryam, and then two more daughters of Khadija, which were Iram and Amina, get a certain share. And then Zaid, who was the son of Khadija, gets some extra share. And now we are done with distributing Khadija's shares as well. So now is the time to make the final total. We add these rows for each of the person, and then we get these numbers. And in the end, we can also add all of these numbers together to make sure that our total is the same as the total distributable wealth, which was $450,000. Now, because of the decimals that I have used, I have not gone beyond two decimal spaces. It might be that my answer was 449,999.999 and so on. So I recommend using at least 2 or 3 decimal spaces so you get as close as to a whole number in the end. In this way, our property is now distributed. Now, I do want to emphasize that although this is easily doable and we can figure it out just the way we just did in this case, however, I want to remind all of us that it is important to distribute inheritance timely. Again, remembering the importance of this commandment of Allah. This is a wasiyah from Allah, a fard from Allah, and a hudud of Allah. And we do not want our dying souls to suffer because we have not done a good job in distribution of their property. If it is not done timely, people will continue to live their lives and would be deprived of their share. Or, in some scenarios, maybe one person is still living in the original house and other family members have moved away from the house or have their own families, or especially the daughters have moved out to their new homes. And in that case, they are being deprived of the share that they deserve, and they are not getting the benefit of that inheritance. So, by not distributing the wealth timely, while it is a sensitive issue in many families at the time of death, but it is justice, it is adl. And by not doing so, we deprive someone of their rights, and others are benefiting from others' rights. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prevent us from doing this zulm. And if this is a scenario in our families, we should try to rectify it as soon as we understand this information. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us do the right judgment and forgive our shortcomings that we have done in the past. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.